Livestream. I must beg your grace for an early show, and today I have Shield Maiden of Corncrakes with me to discuss Corncrakes magazine, as well as projects in the new year, various interests and whatnot, and we'll see about some favored Christmas movies and stories. The real question is Muppets Christmas Carol. Good, great, the best. There are two wrong answers.
I've not heard of those.
What? The Muppets Christmas Carol?
I know there's the Muppets. I'm pretty sure I've seen a Muppets Christmas, but Muppets Christmas Carols is not ringing any bells.
Okay.
I'm
We'll,
from the last century, clearly, not
we'll,
up to
we'll
date.
circle around.
And
Uh,
I sound like I've broken your heart.
my heart's broken. Indeed. I will require three spirits to encourage me: gin, whiskey, and perhaps more gin. Um, Corncrakes Mag is a fantastic little magazine released at the beginning of the month, monthly, with many different stories, poems, notes, stories from Nathan Hood and many other authors. Uh, Nathan Hood, Corncrate, Basket Weavers, and others have been a really great connection point with a lot of different people for the sort of promotion of culture, these high values. I know I'm speaking for myself and for many others who listen to Student Sunday Superversive, but the sort of go it alone, ultra libertarian, to the max frontiersman is quite old hat at this point, and I would rather trade it in for the Christmas hats present in the December issue, which you can find in the chat. But why don't you, Shield Maiden, why don't you talk about this issue and the stories we'll find inside?
Yes, I have done my best to put as many Christmas hats into the December issue as possible because I love them. They're very festive.
Mm,
But outside of Christmas hats, it's really the December issue is about celebrating Christmas, obviously through the lens of English literature, naturally. But there's so much good culture and tradition to Christmas that's separated from the consumerism and the buying of all of the things that were sold as Christmas,
mm,
sadly, in this century. Everything's all about buying and giving gifts, and that's not really what the spirit of Christmas. So I just went back and looked at the literature to find, what is Christmas about. So the December issue had a feature story. It's written by a man called Philip Waterman, and he wrote a story. Let me find the name of it. I've been so busy thinking about next year that December is like not as fresh in my mind as it used to be. But he named his story A Midwinter's Night's Dream. And it's really the clash of Christianity and paganism. So
mm.
it's a really interesting story because obviously Christmas is Christian.
Yes.
But then when you're in any kind of European country, there's older traditions than Christianity. So this story is really interesting. I will say that as I read it, I knew that if someone were a practicing pagan, they would be very offended by the story. But I still recommend it's read because it's very well written.
They've had 1,500 years to get over it. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's yeah. Yeah. If you're a pagan, it's a spicy story. But for the rest of us, it's a good story. But yes, outside of that, I had a lot of the traditions, the older stories. They're always good. The authors may be long dead, but the stories are still good.
Oh yeah.
So I have a poem, Christ's Nativity. Obviously, we get the word Christmas from Christ, so that's why that's in there. But I had other things in there as well, like the 12 days of Christmas. I had you mentioned Nathan Hood. He actually wrote an introduction to that poem.
Mm.
So instead of reading just the poem, you can read a little bit about the poem and what it means. Because, who on earth gifts someone a partridge in a pear tree? To me, that does not make sense. I mean, I would love to receive that just for the. I mean, imagine if someone handed you a pear tree with a partridge sitting in it. Like that would make my Christmas. But it's not. It doesn't really make sense to us modern people. So he has some explanations of what these sorts of things are about.
Would it shock you to learn my father was interested in horticulture for a very long time, and
Mhm.
we actually gifted him gift cards with which he bought himself a pear tree and planted it in our yard, and other trees besides, mostly apples. Uh, but yes, no, it was a fantastic gift. He loved it every time.
Well, he just needs a partridge to add to it, and that would be perfection.
In the city, it's probably packing heat.
You can have a pet partridge.
Hmm.
That would be fun. But yes, also the art the art section this month was about snow. Just lots of pictures with lots of snow in it because snow is
Yes,
fun.
I like
Snow is the best.
the image of the man skating. That's a very
Oh, that was a really cool one. I think he's a
yes.
reverend on the ice. Yeah, so that was a good one. And then some of the other ones were, yeah, I was trying to keep the religious aspect of Christmas in there, like where love is, there is God also. That's Leo
Mm,
Tolstoy. A Midwinter's Night's Dream. That's Charles Dickens. So these are very much people firmly in connection with religion and the meaning of Christmas. Because I don't think our modern day and age has any proper connection with Christmas. It's just basically you buy gifts and argue with your family. I mean, sometimes it seems that's what it's like, which is a shame.
yes. I mean, it's for my family, viewers of the show know that my brother passed away from a sudden myocarditis, very sudden indeed, as Vox likes to say. And so, of course, my mother does not have much of a Christmas spirit. Uh, so it's like not
Hmm.
even just arguments, not even truly negative. My brother was a Christian man. He talked of Jesus as they pulled the plugs of the machines that were keeping him alive. So
Hmm.
we have every hope that we'll meet him again in heaven. Yet the grief on this earth remains and tarnishes what should be the most happy season on this planet.
Hmm.
And so it's not even fighting. Like I completely agree with you, of course. But at the same time, it's not even fighting. It's the grief of lost family members, empty spaces by the fire, and a crutch
Yeah. Hmm.
cherished with care, like Tiny Tim. Um, so there's so much more to it than the gifts and even the family. It's what's there and what's not there matters more than the presents themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's like with Christmas, when everyone's getting together, you really notice when people are missing.
Mm, it's true,
Mm.
but it's the benefit of us being familial creatures is that we bring in new people as well. So when the those families who are ordered and can learn to forgive each other, when more grandchildren and children's children come in, you get quite a large and happy home indeed for those brief days. Though I'm sure that uh, uh, for the more reticent of us, it is too what's the word I want? Too loud and boisterous. And we must say, bah humbug.
Yeah, as the time goes on, it's all the loudness is fun at the start, but then it's like, oh my gosh, why? But yeah, that's most of the December issue. But I did finish up my own continuing story as well, Druid Without a Home. This one is his basically he returns home. We've got to have him reach home at Christmas.
Hmm.
But the story isn't over. I'm still working on editing it. So hopefully in the future it can be released as a book. So basically, these first was it 10 issues of the Corncrake, they're all, they've all shown the first 10 stories, a sneak peek into hopefully the future novel. Um, but yeah, that's kind of sums up the Christmas edition, I think.
Right, right. Uh, I always appreciate the curation of these Corncrake mags. You put a lot of effort into it. Looks great. Any chance that we'll be starting to get more physical editions in the future?
I do hope that that will happen. The main problem with printing magazines is that in order to get the cost of the magazine down low enough for people to find it affordable with shipping is you need to print a lot of them.
Mm,
And so when you're looking at your readership, it's like, how do you determine what percentage of these people would buy something? Because let's be honest, people, you need to print something like 50 to 100 magazines before the cost of printing per magazine comes down,
yes.
which is kind of a lot. And I'm all for printing the corncrake. I want to receive the corncrake. I mean, I know I make the corncrake, but I still want to receive it in the mail in a hard copy. I do. I really do. But yeah, it's just. I mean, if I had, if I had enough interest, I would print it in a heartbeat. But it's just needing to guarantee that because yes, like selling 100 magazines each month is a lot.
Yes. Yeah, and there's always ways to do. I know Krasova does about that uh, at the baseline. I actually need to pick up my winter edition of Krasova Mag. Uh, the best pulp action out there, friend of the show. Um,
So does that?
hmm?
Sorry, I haven't heard of this magazine. But does he do one like every 3 months, like winter edition? Is this?
I would say that he does one every 4 to 6 months.
Mhm.
He tries for 3 to 4 a year,
Yeah.
and then sort of sees what else he does. Um, like he's almost got a full shelf of my of one of my bookshelves. Uh, yeah, he does a similar style to you do, but he does also take advertisements. Like I'm advertised on a half page in the winter's magazine for Pinkerton's Ghosts, the show that I hope all our dear listeners watch um, and listen to. Uh, and it has an advertisement made by Based Papist, who you can hire on Twitter. Um, and yeah, it's a magazine. Uh, nice pulpy action.
Yeah. No, it does sound good, but you know, I guess I'm, once a month is quite frequent, and yeah. But look, as soon as I have the numbers, it can be printed. So it's simply a matter of extending the readership, and then when that happens, we're good to go. Because
Oh, of course.
the more English literature everyone reads, the better the
I
world becomes.
agree entirely. It is such full of good manners and meaning. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've actually done quite a bit of work on Pilgrim's Progress through YouTube Shorts for quite some time because I feel it is a cornerstone of English literary identity, um, culminating in such things as the Chronicles of Narnia, which I believe is a direct ancestor of.
I will say I support what you're doing. I just avoid YouTube shorts myself because I get addicted to them and then I spend too long on them. So I avoid all shorts.
Fair enough. Really, they're just mini videos at this point because now I have 3 minutes to play with. So
How is that a short if it's 3 minutes?
I don't know. I've got 3 minutes now, so I'm gonna
They
use
let
them.
you, so you're gonna do it. No, I
Yes.
like that.
And so my basic argument is that Pilgrim's Progress is the progenitor, the keystone, much like Shakespeare, the King James Bible, and like
Mhm.
Arthurian myth and legend, to sort of a English identity, where the religious and the fantastic are melded together.
Is it
Uh,
John Bunyan who wrote it?
that's right.
Oh, okay, because I remember reading like a kid's version, so I don't know what the actual version is like. I think the version I read was, made written in simpler language for children.
It's actually well, I shouldn't say whether or not it's simple because I was quite an advanced reader when I was a child, so I enjoyed it immensely. Um, so it's I'll keep my statements about that to myself, but it's an accessible read. How about that?
I had someone had it on their bookshelf, and I'm just thinking that they must have had some kind of kids version.
Ah, yes.
So it was less about my reading ability, more about like what the physical book in front of my face was, sort of thing.
Oh no, I was speaking to our dear listeners. Um, excuse me. No, I borrowed my mother's and then I discovered I had a copy. So
Hmm.
I also found a very nice copy on my trip to Scotland. It's just like a beige square, but then like you look at it and it's got gold trim and all the illustrations in a very nice way. It's a very lovely little hidden copy.
Oh, I do like a book with good illustrations.
Yes. I believe Pilgrim's Progress is part of a tradition with the stories that you have in Corncrake and what people generally look to for Christmas. Many of the Christmas stories are of English make and origin. Famously A Christmas Carol. The Muppets Christmas Carol, of course. But also just the Christmas Carol in general. We also have things less Christmassy, like The Wishing Chair again and Granny's Wonderful Chair. I don't know why I have both, but I do. Um, that have this sort of like Children in Wonderland feel, where they go in and then they meet somebody whose name is unironically Goodness, the fairy Goodness. And when people say "Goodness gracious me," they are referring to, of course, the good fairy Goodness, um, who has moral lessons for all the little children. Uh, you also sort of have it in a way with the knightly virtue. But what I feel is very different is that with knightly virtue, even though it's for every man and every woman, uh, in the appropriate setting, of course, it is a noble sentiment in many cases. No matter what someone says to me as a bouncer, and believe you me, all they do is call me fat. It is very tiring at this point. I
Do they
might,
also tell lies about everything?
everything all the time. Uh, I could,
That's what I remember.
I have caught them in the middle of hucking up in the bathroom, and they will
Oh,
tell me that they are simply spitting up a little.
oh, what
Um,
bullshit.
and
No, I
then,
did do a bit of security, a little bit, and yeah, it's just that lies spew out of these people's mouths while I look you dead in the eye. It's unbelievable.
if I were a man of noble blood and mien, I would have to answer such lies with the back of my fist for to
When will you do this?
strike them.
Yes, in a
Uh,
state of righteous anger.
yes. If I were of noble means, to the churly villain. No. No. The actually one of my bouncer friends and I were talking about it while on shift, and we were joking, of the an insult battle. And then the person just steps back and go, "Wait a minute, why am I arguing with you? You're just stupid." And there's no answer to that except to fight him. Because how can you answer that, without sounding mad? It's you've strung up the insults too high, and now you must answer
Hmm.
for them. No, I never I've never laid hands on any of my unfortunate charges in anger, and God willing, I never will. But uh, when I look at these old noble stories, before quote unquote a middle class was developed as we would know it, um, there's a hard pride there and a hard set of expectations that somebody who isn't tied to the land, tied to a certain amount of pride, can just sort of laugh off like I do. Like in all the Arthurian legends, insults are bandied about, and they were already going to fight. But then they have to duel over something more important than just let's see who's the strongest, which they do anyway at other times. Sometimes it gets very confusing what's allowed and what's not, but it's all right.
Alcohol just gets people
Oh, I was talking about
a
knights,
little.
but yes, I believe that they were also a bit of alcohol with them too. Um, and they can't ignore it. But whether they're a churl or a knightly lord, but for me, be a creature of the middle class, when they say come along Pillsbury Doughboy, whereas other people like he called you fat, he insulted you. I actually think that is the funniest thing anyone said to me that day, for the simple reason it's this person's drunk, it slides me like water off a duck's back. Surely there are some insults that would rouse me to anger, righteous anger, but I will not speculate on them.
Oh, it's like if one is not insulted, then other person's attempts at insulting are like they don't have an effect.
Yes. Hello, Nathan Hood. Uh, yes, and I enjoy the work, but for me it helps me gain perspective on not only the goodness fairies, right behavior for good little boys and girls, but also sort of manful behavior and how to go forward in the face of somebody spitting venal evil. Like they're a ghost in a Christmas story, or uh, actually, they didn't really spit venal evil. I shouldn't say that. Like they're a landlord or a usurer in a Dickensian drama. Is that better? I think that's much better. Yes.
Hmm.
Have you ever read Bleak House?
Somehow that name rings a bell, but I don't think. Who's the author of that? Is it
Dickens.
okay? No, I've kind of seen half his stuff, but half not. It's kind of weird.
Fair enough.
The
They,
oldest book I own is a vintage one, and it's from the 1800s. So they use the printing press, so the letters are embossed in the page.
ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, sadly, I've only like read or familiar with half of Dickens' writing, so there's a lot that I haven't yet read.
The man was a machine. So, I haven't even bothered. I actually just watch the PBS dramas that they post. They actually have a very good Bleak House to watch if people are
Not
interested
woke.
in that. No, uh, I couldn't tell you. Uh, but it's my mother was very satisfied with it.
Oh, good.
This was many years ago though. Actually, this was like 20 years ago. Um, so I think it wouldn't be as woke as we're expecting these days. But they had a evil landlord who's part of the John Dice and Jarndyce Infinite lawsuit, uh, and he does he spontaneously combust? Yes, he spontaneously combusts in the middle of the story.
Well, that's a very unusual thing to do.
It was very popular at the time.
I no one ever does that though, do they? I,
It can happen.
have you ever met anyone who spontaneously combusted in the middle of a conversation?
It wasn't in the middle of a conversation. It was he was drunk in his basement, and you know what? It wasn't the landlord. It was some other unpleasant character. But he was drunk in his basement, and he keeps going, "Oh, I'm so hot, Moggs," and he's referring to his evil cat. And he's going, "Oh, I'm so hot," and then he's like, "Oh,
What?
this alcohol will
Why is
cool
he
me
saying he's
down."
hot? Like he's saying he's attractive, or is it his temperature?
His temperature.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
He's fit to combust, don't you know? And then all of a sudden the cat watches him, and you don't see it, but like you sort of see the flash from outside the windows, and they discover him dead when they're
This
looking
is
for it.
very this is very exciting. I want to see someone spontaneously combust. I need to add this to my bucket list.
Just go up to somebody. How you feeling? I'm feeling all right. You feeling like you're gonna spontaneously combust anytime soon? No. Keep me informed.
Maybe I should try asking someone that.
I will say that Bleak House does feel like a winter story, and many of Dickens's stories feel like winter stories. The exception being things like Nicholas Nickleby, um, which is very much a story of the spring and summer, winter, spring, like the end of winter, right? If you have you read Nicholas Nickleby or watched it?
I'm not sure. I know the name. I know the name. See, these you're saying these things, and it's like I know the name, but often sometimes the title of a story doesn't remind me of the content of it. That's the problem.
Fair enough. Uh, are you even
I just have
English?
this problem with things, like even with music. Someone
Yes.
says, "Oh, this is the name of this thing." Cool, but like I don't. Yeah, it's like the name is just separated from the content, and I can know the content of something, but not the name.
Oh, I'm like that about people. But no, the story is that Nicholas Nickleby is now the master of his house after his dear father passed away. Unfortunately, his father was poor with money, and they must go to, even though he wasn't an evil man or anything like that, he didn't waste it, but he was bad at business, and so wasted it. So they go to Nicholas, his brother, who is a miser and a breaker of men's fortunes for his own gain. And Nicholas Nickleby must navigate the treacherous streets of London finance while also maintaining his good morals. Along the way, he meets his friend. I think it's oh my goodness. I think it's like Steers or Stike, Pike. Ooh, Psyche. There we go. His friend Psyche, who he rescues from an evil boys' school run by Mr. Squeers and his ugly wife and uglier daughter. He himself is also ugly, in case you didn't know. Uh,
Okay, that's at least equality.
oh no, you have to understand all the good people are beautiful. All the good
If
people are
only
beautiful.
that's convenient.
It is I believe, like Roald Dahl, that beauty is on the inside. I guarantee you, I've never been shocked with who I've had to drag out of my bar and how they look like. Um, but and so basically they have adventures, and it's one of those. It's a really feel good movie. Like so, Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol is very feel good in the end, right? Everyone is brought forward and they celebrate Christmas, and Tiny Tim isn't going to die. And Bob Cratchit still has his job. Less people are evicted for not paying their rents, and so on and so forth. But Nicholas Nickleby just feels good. Like good people have their troubles, but because they maintain good, they meet friends who help them out. And even when good friends suffer around them, they are able to help those good friends meet whatever unfortunate or fortunate fate that they could arrive at. So
It
it's sorry, go
it
for it.
sounds wholesome, but like, do you think it's true that good-looking people have less problems or are able to deal with their problems better than unattractive people?
It's not just that they're good looking; they are as good looking as their insides allow them to be.
But as far as I'm aware, like there is a big disconnect between people's looks and their character, the content of their character, as it were.
I used to think that way, but I've actually come around to physiognometry. And if I
The
ever come to,
physiognomy has like lined up.
yes, and if you're ever curious about it, I'll bring some head calipers and we can go about measuring people's heads to see whether their inner goodness has affected their
I
outward
would love
form.
that. I would love to go around measuring people's heads, but I think they would be weirded out.
Clip it. No, I'm kidding. All right, yes. No, no. So, how do I want to put this? Over the course of a person's life, whatever beauty they're given at birth, they have an opportunity to enhance or degrade that beauty. So let's say there's a a strong man, of ogreish appearance, right? He could choose to be some fat Dickens villain called Squeer or something like that, or Butcher something, Butcher Bob, or basically, show up as a one-off villain to somebody's life. Or instead, they could be a good and gentle soul, not necessarily any the less strong or terrible in appearance for it, but rather their acts show through their outward appearance. While I would never say, "Hey kid, that white van looks pretty good. You should check to see if they have any candy." Uh, the and the what I am saying is that if you're going down a dark alley in East St. Louis and you see some people dressed up in gang colors, they might be exactly what they appear to be. Their outward form and their inward self, are in congruence. In the same way with a beautiful lady. While a lady might be beautiful, she, in my experience, she comes into a bar, she's very well put together, but as she gets drunker and drunker, how she feels will come out stronger and stronger and stronger, and eventually, if she does not moderate herself, her tongue will make clear what her face does not. And she will probably call me fat because that's the easiest one to choose. But rather than say, "Oh wow, I have had 50 margaritas. Maybe I should slow down."
50? That would you look, any woman of average size would be poisoned by
An
50
English woman, but
margaritas.
an American woman.
Well, how can they stomach 50? I'm sorry, if a woman weighs the same size as me, I'm sure like the fact she's American isn't going to make her able to survive 50 margaritas. That's a lot.
I am a patriot. I believe in my countrywomen, and I'm sorry that you don't.
I just can't believe that a woman
They
can have like
don't.
a million serves of alcohol and not be throwing up and
It's
dying and need an ambulance.
okay. It's more like 2 or 3 tequila shots. Um,
Are they
little
the ones where you need to like bite down on the lemon afterwards?
Most people don't these days, but yeah.
How can they not? I've only had one once and I don't want to do it again.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't touch the stuff either, but I don't know. I've seen them throw them back and just do it straight. I was terrified, but if I
No,
te-
I don't think it's worth it
tequila makes
drinking
me
too.
a preacher man, and I stay away from it.
It
Uh,
gives me heartburn. I don't think it's worth it. Like it's not worth getting like drunk like that and being hungover the next day.
it isn't, but people
No,
still
no
do it.
good can come of it.
Like the beautiful, I did throw out a quite beautiful lady. Friday. It was her 20 what at first birthday or whatever. Um, she looked pretty good, but she drank the entire time and couldn't recognize that she was drunk, even though I saw her make the motions of it, and then she started calling me poor for some reason.
What?
Uh,
And she doesn't know you. Why is she calling you poor? This is very strange.
but
Where is this woman? I have questions.
it comes down to the same sort of point that we originally were talking about. I firmly believe that a certain amount of a person's beauty affects their outside, and makes itself incredibly evident by the content of their character and by reinforcements by other means. Um, it's like with Snow White, right? The evil queen is beautiful, but it's clear through her thoughtless desire to perform cruel actions to defend her beauty, that her cruelty is self-evident. The huntsman may take mercy on Snow White, but it's clear he's done dirty work for the queen before. Even though it's a fairy tale, he doesn't go, I've never murdered a human being before, a woman, a girl besides. Instead, he's like, I should do it. Oh, but I can't because she's so beautiful and good and kind. It has a certain question to it. I always wonder when I read these things, is there actually, a connection between our outward and our inward states? Um,
I mean, I'm sure there has to be a connection, but see, this is the thing. Does it only, for some people, does it only appear when they're very, very old? Because there's a lot of young people with their perfectly fresh little faces who are horrible inside.
it's true. I don't doubt it for an instant. But also, like again, maybe it's just because I work as a bouncer and I see it much more often. The devil comes out of them and becomes a very close thing under the mask, so that it's easy for me to remember, what these people are like, really, because their mask has come off thanks to the alcohol. Um, in other times in other places, you people are more able to act as their nature would dictate. So it comes about sooner and faster. If you hide what your nature is, I'm sure it works out. But there's like with women I've met who've had to hide things from me and other things. Though they can't help their looks. With men it's posture, but with women it's much more, sort of like facial expressions. In the sort of blank spots between motions. A man may feel threatened by me, sort of like in my haunched posture or something, but at the same time, I've known little old ladies to be completely, it's like, oh, it's Ben. Hey, how you doing, Ben? It's the knowledge of how you take these things, but also the like the reaction to what other people are doing. It's oh, my goodness. Like when Ebenezer Scrooge, to bring this back to a little bit more Christmas, interacts with the three spirits, they don't take into account, the fact that he's in his PJs and stocking cap. They sort of grab him and take him to see what there is, and he sees how people treated him in the past, not just in his memory, but how it actually was. So he can form and change his opinions about how his life has actually been. It's I don't know if how much the story, I only really watch the movies, but how much the written story does. But it always it seems to me in the movies, whether it's by a trick of makeup or just acting, that the actor who plays Ebenezer Scrooge just looks so much better after his night with the three spirits. Michael Caine is up and dancing and smiling. His grim faced gone. His
Do you think
mm,
do you think it's like the perception in our brains when we see a person we know to be good? Do we think that that person looks better? So
mm,
it look more like an internal thing rather than their face actually necessarily is.
perhaps. See, I have a very dim view of humanity. I've studied
Yeah.
religion extensively. I know.
Why do you have a dim view? What have we humans done to disappoint you, sir?
Well, I was watching Fifth Element, and then she gets to the war section. No, that it's a very dumb scene in a movie where she gets to war, and then she freaks out because of man's inhumanity to man. But there's like 5,000 things between Aardvark and war that should have freaked her out. But whatever. Um, so So here's my statement on that sort of thing. We are celebrating, of course, in a couple days, the birth of our Savior Jesus Christ. He will eventually die and rise again from the grave, destroying the chains of sin that are upon us if we will but accept the gift. Excuse me. They attack. Yes, my throat. They attack my throat. Uh,
Mm.
the, if we but accept the gift. However, uh, the reason he had to come down and die on the cross for us is not just from some nebulous God's plan that people think they understand, but really you it's like a concept that you can repeat and parrot, but you can't necessarily understand it in its true details, like a piece of art that's too advanced for you. But the reason why he had to come down is because we in our inner nature have sin. All of us have done things that have been against the rules that God has set down for us to live by. And I don't mean rules like, you can't wear two types of clothing. Those are the Jewish religious rules. I mean things like they can be summarized as love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And that those are the Ten Commandments. You're not going to steal or murder if you love your neighbor. You're not going to kill yourself or to worship Baal and throw your children to the fire of Baal if you love God. Um, but we break these things. We find ourselves unable to love God or unable to love each other or even unable to love ourselves, which is sort of like the hidden third thing in there. If we have no self worth, we have no belief in the excellence and beauty and glory that God has made us. Adam went about naked, and his glory was enough to clothe him as the father of mankind. We lost that when Adam and Eve ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They were given that tree not because God was some sort of tormentor keeping it from them. They understood that what God wanted was to commune with them, and they understood that He asked of them just one thing: not to eat it. They could not commune with Him of their own free will without a choice not to. By eating the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they accepted that sin, that inability to love God and love our neighbors and love ourselves in different ways for each person. Uh, so when Christ came and wiped away the chains that bound us in this unalterable line from father to son, mother to daughter, or father, daughter, mother, son, if you will, uh, we we now have that option to get away from that, through accepting his free gift of grace. However, if we don't accept that free gift of grace, we're still bound by our sin. We're still bound by the ideas that um, You know, we don't love God, we don't love our neighbor, and even we don't love ourselves. Quite frankly, these poor souls I throw out of the bar for being too drunk, are hate. Many of them display signs of hating themselves. They're willing to damage themselves. They're unwilling to, see what needs to be done to live a better
Do you,
life.
do you think they have low self-esteem?
Some of them do. Others don't, but they need it. Well, so it would help them. Uh, if if I am a sinner, and I am one, and I needed Christ to save me, which He has, then if I know the wickedness of my own heart, and I am desperately wicked, as the good book says, um, it's uh, how much are these people better than me? Are they worse than me? No. We are all equally damned. While the nine circles of hell are
I thought
excellent.
there were seven. Aren't there seven?
No, there's nine.
Seven
Seven?
circles of hell.
How many
Or have I
circles
got
of
the
hell?
number wrong?
Hold on.
I'm not sure what happens in the different circles of hell, but I thought there was only seven.
I thought there was nine. Nine. All right. Yeah, nine circles of hell. According to Inferno. In reality, it's still all hell. And after Christ, there's no such thing as a virtuous pagan. Especially as the knowledge of Christ is universal across the world, except for a few, tribes hidden away in the Amazon, demon haunted and tormented, um, and other places as well. Sentinel Island, for example.
Yeah, that's a very weird island. I don't know
Yes.
what goes on there.
Well, nothing good. Nothing to,
Nothing exciting.
nothing
These people,
exciting. Yeah.
they probably live very ordinary lives there.
I would not. Well, I guess it depends on your version of ordinary. I view us as having ordinary lives, but them, I wouldn't say it. Say
They
so.
just dance around fires at night, raise their families, kill
Sure.
anyone who comes near.
Worship demons. Having a normal one. Have you touched grass today, Shield?
They probably do have patches of grass on there. I
Yes.
actually don't know. I'm sure there's some grass somewhere they can touch. Therefore,
Yes. Uh, but if I know, back to my point, if I know my own evil and I know how evil I am, and I'm of course evil, uh, uh, therefore I needed my savior, if you will, and I need my savior to be good, because there's quite frankly very few rewards to being good to people I don't know. Which is against the story of Nicholas Nickleby, who has many people who are good to people they don't know just because they like them.
but I think
Uh,
there is a lot of benefit to being good to people you don't know.
Maybe we've had different lives.
Well, look,
Uh,
I've moved to England all by myself, knowing no one.
yes,
So I have to be good and open. That's how I can make connections. So I think if I was like distrusting and all that, then I would have had a very different experience.
I would say that in my interactions with people, and even with people who should have been very good to me, has been very negative. And I have had well, I've had some many lovely relatives and friends over the years.
This is you need to point these people out to me, and I will fight them for you. Like
No,
they
no,
can't just what?
I have forgiven them.
You can't. Why are you stopping me from fighting people?
Because I'll have to break up the fight, Shield Maiden.
No, you won't. You won't. You won't. I'll win
I
the
am
fight. Don't
literally paid for it. Um,
worry.
but it's this is something that was understood by many people throughout history, Dostoevsky is probably the one that people immediately remember, but also men like Charles Dickens and Charles Dickens will keep it to him for now. Understood the sort of darkness of the human idea and soul and all these other things. That Scrooge needed redemption fundamentally. From his own self, he was doomed to die, miserable, alone, and these people who are cleaning up his house will steal even the blankets off of his deathbed, so that he has nothing. His friends, quote unquote, business partners, because they feared him, will mock him after his death. His own nephews will, hang his head in remembrance and then go, oh, that was just Scrooge. Bob Cratchit's son will die because, it is difficult to raise money for doctoring in Victorian England. Like there's a whole cavalcade of things that sort of make Scrooge's life amount to nothing. He is a unpleasant fart on the wind that is nearing its end. He must be redeemed by the end of the three spirits, or he will suffer for it. Um, the fate is a tomb with an empty body within. That is the only thing that awaits him. Uh, so he takes the story to heart, and he changes, and he becomes a redeemed man. Really, he would become saved in the lingo. Um, there's a spirit change, an action change that happens to people after they're saved. They find that their old vices may be ash to them, that they are prevented from evil, that there's a conscience much more loud than it could ever be before within their own souls, telling them right from wrong in a way that is better than before. Artists might be inspired. Businessmen may have new ideas given to them, and they find that they can overcome difficulties which seem insurmountable before. There is a change of life that happens that breaks the cycles of the old, the chains of the old, the contracts. This goes out to our friend Nathan Hood in the chat. He breaks the spear of Odin with all its contracts of the world bound to it, and your own life as well. See that? I brought in Wagner. Just for you,
What,
sir.
what is he saying in the chats? I don't
Nothing.
see
He
it.
just said hello. I don't even know if he's listening. But
Okay.
I'm giving him a wink and a nod. Uh, uh, but what was I saying? Right. So it changes, right? The spirit of Christmas, especially for artist types, is not necessarily in some sort of pageantry of the babe in the manger and Santa Claus and all this jazz, but rather the interest that God has in our lives, that He sent down Christ to be with us, to walk 33 and a half years, give or take, in our shoes, and to be tempted as we are, to overcome as we must overcome. For me as an artist, that God would do this for me. It's more than anything I expect out of a god. When does Zeus share labors? With Jason and the Argonauts, Hera is on his shoulder. And he's forced to carry that burden. Going down. Even and people may say, oh well, Saint Christopher, has a similar story. Uh, but the difference is that unlike Jason, Saint Christopher served the devil and served the kings of the world, and desired to serve Christ too. Whereas Hera came upon Jason unawares and called on him for a good deed at random. Whereas Saint Christopher served 9 years or 7 years at the ford before Christ was born by him, until Christ ultimately had to bear Saint Christopher. Um, the stories, the spirit is entirely different spirit. Uh, and I think it creates in the Christian, we mentioned Pilgrim's Progress as well, but also the Christian society, it creates a different spirit that sort of how do I want to put it? The Christian spirit and the Faustian spirit are actually, of the are the same coin. Where the Faustian spirit to seek the infinite is actually a mandate from heaven, to break the sort of bounds we're given, because after all, if Christ broke our sin and shame, then what binds do we have at this time anyway?
I will be honest, I'm not very sure about Faustian spirits. It sounds political and philosophical, and my brain just stops working. It's, but yes, I think like overall, like obviously, like yeah, the spirit of Christmas is so much. There's many layers to it. Obviously,
Yes.
it's well, it's more than like consumerism, but then
Mm.
the more you look into it, there's so many deeper emotions, and yeah, it's very very complicated. I am hoping, I will be honest, that in the next year, obviously I'll have more experience doing the magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be more capable of not. I don't really want to theme the magazines because I like to be open to everyone's submissions as and when they send them in,
Sure.
but also, especially for something like Christmas, which is so obvious. Just to look into all of our traditions here in the West, they've been made into consumerism, but I think that there's so much more than that. And even Easter, like Easter is also, Easter bunny. What even is that?
Right.
I was raised, the Amish tradition. Easter is about Jesus being raised from the dead. Like, how on earth do eggs and Easter bunny? What is an Easter bunny? Like, it's it's a bit absurd. So I was hoping like, when the time comes, when the right month is here, I can help, like I can put things into the Corncrake that are, more deeper and more meaningful
Yes.
to the important events that are happening in that month.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great way to do it as well, because it keeps it on theme, and it lets you sort of walk through the year according to your feeling. I'm a man of the horror genre.
Hmm.
So for me, October and spooky season and chills and whatnot. But then, sometimes I do need Christmas. Ho ho! The
I
evil
like
guy is getting his comeuppance. Ho 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 ho. Ho.
I like a bit of spooky season all year round because it's just good to have. I think the ghost stories fit in a bit with the detective ones, and
Yes,
so I like that all year round. I personally am not supporting it all being around October. I want a bit of that all year round.
yes. And of course, you'll clever readers will see that I will have a story in the January edition of Corncrake. Uh,
Oh, I found an excellent picture of a black cat for it.
Excellent, excellent. Uh, yes, we're walking the talk even as we preach it. Chat.
Yes, that's
Yes.
important. Yeah, the January issue I'm quite looking forward to. I've got some customized art for the front cover. And here over here in the UK, January has Burns Night in it. I'm not sure if you heard of the poet Robert Burns.
I have.
So his birthday's in January, and in Scotland, it's a tradition to have Burns Night. So it's a celebration. It's a celebration of him, but it's also a celebration of Scottishness. So I have an introduction to his poem called Address to a Haggis. So Nathan Hood has written an introduction to that. On Burns Night, there is a ceremony where you proclaim a poem written by Robert Burns, and then you stab the haggis. So it's a very important poem to Burns Night. So, and then I've also written because a haggis is a living animal. I know people pretend otherwise, but it's an actual animal.
Oh,
And the haggises have legs on one side of their body shorter than the other side.
Of
And
course.
that's because they live on the sides of mountains, so obviously they need their legs different lengths so they don't roll down the mountain. So I wrote a short story called The Holy Haggis of King Arthur's Mountain, and that's going to be in the January issue as well, all in celebration of Burns Night, of course. And then, yes, I have the story by you in there. I also have a few other things written because like for the January issue, I have a lot more stories written by people. I have quite a bit less stories. I put a lot of stories from the past into the Corncrake, but the January issue is so stuffed, I don't have room for that. So I'm starting off a series, A Song of Spring, A Sword Fit for a King. So there's going to be quite a few installments of that one. And the first one is in the January issue. And then I have a few one-off stories as well. One is called The Encircling Cells, so that's like about a monk. I don't know when monks. There's such a broad time span of when monks were a thing in England, but
Yes.
that's kind of that, and it's a story. It's a story with a deep meaning. It's actually fitting in a bit with the idea of it's a story. It's a type of story you would be able to publish in October as well, and it would be quite fitting actually. But of course, it's quite deep. It's not just ooh, let's have the skin. Sorry, let's have the hair on our backs prickling upwards. Let's shiver a bit. No, it's deeper than that. It's not just surface level spooky. It's deeper.
Mm.
And I've got a lot of art in it as well. I'm a big fan of the artist I interviewed for the January issue. He's an oil artist. He's located here in England. He's painted a lot of portraits, a lot of pictures of the saints, and some of his artwork has been purchased by some cathedrals here in England. So he's kind of
Nice.
a big deal. And then my favorite story, on the channel of Nathan Hood, he runs the Merry Corncrakes podcast. So he has the podcast of the Corncrake. So on there in January will be The Quokka Plants a Wee Castle. That's a story I wrote and I'm narrating it as well. So it's an audio book. So that's going to go up onto Nathan's channel
Mm.
in January as well. So there's a lot going on for January. But yeah, I just want a quick add. Another important thing, I'm making a change for next year. Obviously, it's specified to England, but I have some new pages. I've added some pages to the magazine, and on them I have listed important dates for each month. Even if the dates are not ones that we celebrate, they're not public holidays. They're still the days that were celebrated in, say, medieval times, or they're the birthdays of saints, or perhaps they're a date celebrated by, let's say, the Catholics or the Church of England here in England. And these are dates that are important to England, even if, they're not public holidays. And I also wanted a few fun facts about different historic counties as well, because England is, oh God, there's something like 50 something counties across the UK. There's like 37 in England and a whole 13 in Ireland, and then there's a whole bunch in Northern Ireland as well. And these historic counties have been going on since like the 1100s. Like they're so old. But the problem is in the modern day and age, there's different. What's used for ruling people and for legislation is different to the historic counties. So the existence of the historic counties is under threat, basically.
Mm.
So by putting information about historic counties into the magazine, I hope, for those who are interested, of course, they'll be able to read a bit of information about the historic counties, because it's important that we save them.
Right.
So yeah, a few changes to the magazine for next year, but overall, it's going to be the same. Got to keep the same goodness going.
Of course. And yeah, it is important. And I do like to hear that sort of thing. We need more long runners. One of the things that I think people underestimate is the spirit of things when you enter into sort of a culture or a set of desires. Like when I was, sort of younger and introduced into writing and publishing in a more serious manner, many magazines and stuff were crushed before even their first year. For me, it was Astounding Frontiers, which had some of Nick Cole's work, my own work, work from others. Um, but it only lasted 6 issues. But then we now we have things like Ursova Mag, which has been going on many years now, and Corncrake, which has done a full year, um,
Almost a full year, not quite.
almost a full year. That's right.
March. March is a
March.
full year. Yeah.
Yep, yep. We also have things like Man's World, and many other projects just seem to have more longevity than they did about 10 years ago, which heartens me considerably. And of course,
Do you,
hmm?
sorry, do you have an idea of why? Because obviously 10 years ago I was like underage, so I wasn't really around. But like, um, do you know why things nowadays have longevity and they didn't back then?
So I have some theories about that. Indeed, the biggest one is that the people who are making them are much more resistant to the idea of um, line going up magical thinking. Does that make sense? Where profits must go up. They must go up, and it's like, no, 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 no. We're making, we're selling 200 issues. That's good. You know, we don't need
Yeah.
to go crazy to do it more. Oh, we're not growing. This. Why aren't you growing? Oh, we're not really marketing. Therefore, we must close the mag. It's like, no. If you aren't doing something, that's not a reason to close anything. You have to do it to try it. Um, you know, it's that sort of thing as well. Excuse me. There were also some actors running around who were fairly, I don't want to say traitorous, but they caused drama when they didn't have to cause drama. Um, it's especially with the charged environment during the first Trump election.
Hmm.
Many people were not fans of Trump, despite not being fans of Biden or Clinton or whoever. And they decided to take it out on people like myself, grand prophets of Baron Trump's God Emperorship. Hail, God Emperor. Uh, no, 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 no. That wasn't a meme back then. But uh, it caused friction where there didn't need to be any. Nowadays things have calmed down quite a bit because it always feels weird to me because I had people scupper ideas and scuttle on the rocks, some stuff I wanted to do, and then like I meet them and they don't even know my name. And it's like, buddy, you shut down some of my projects with my publisher. How do you not know my name? um, so it was a weird environment where there was a lot of people moving and shaking and fighting, and there was all kinds of things. Oh, you said this. Well, what's the logical conclusion of this? Well, you're just not supposed to say it. Which broke up sad puppies a bit. Even though they won, but it was like one of those wins where the enemy like ritually guts himself to prevent you from taking his castle or something. Um,
It's a bit horrific.
it was. They Sad Puppies was about the Hugo Award, which is the grand award of science fiction, and we loaded it so that John C. Wright, the Grandmaster of science fiction, would win it legally. Just so you know, because he released like essays and videos and novels and novellas and novelettes, and short stories. So he was eligible for just about every author based um, award, and they
Hmm.
essentially kicked him out rather than let him have his grand win. Um, you
Who
know,
won instead?
some diversity hire. Uh,
You,
yeah, no, she is anyway. I don't want to.
someone who history will forget
Yes, they've already
in
forgotten
our
her.
lifetime. Oh, they've
Uh,
already forgotten.
I cannot even discuss it with her, discuss her and my opinions of her without violating several ordinances in different countries. That is how little I respect her and her work. But um,
I guess,
these, yeah, and it's just a different, if it's a different spirit now. There's more people willing to work together. I was mistaken about what the basket weavers were, and you're like, hey, no, it's just people getting together and working on projects. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
absolutely, let's do that. It's not because of I wasn't gonna kick in its door and go, you're not doing it the right way. That's ridiculous. That's nonsensical of me to do so. No, it's just rather than attacking and destroying, people seem to be more willing to work together. I think it's a new generation.
I think, well, it's kind of my mindset. I hope it's others as well. But yeah, it's like you're marketing to your group. You're trying to serve your group, but you don't care if millions don't care about your project. It's like the people who matter do. And it's
Millions
about
must ignore.
yeah, because like I don't really want to be receiving submissions from woke people, let's be honest. I would be appalled if I got an email with someone's pronouns after their name.
Oh, we've had so many for Hightower.
So I will send them your way. I don't want them. You may have them. But yeah, it's like I have a particular, I have a moral standard which the magazine lives up to.
It's
And
true.
then it's like if vast quantities don't like that, they don't even read it, and that's fine. It can stay small, and that's fine because I don't even like globalism, so I don't need everyone all around the world to read the magazine either. So
Right, right. The line doesn't need to go up forever for you to feel self worth.
no, I'd like the magazine to sustain itself. I'd like for it to be able to be printed. But other than that, then what's the goal? I don't want millions. Millions don't need to read. So yeah,
Yes,
so yeah, it's good. It's good.
it's true. I think it's also people have gotten used to the technologies that have come out since then, uh, and are sort of like aware of who's a good actor and who's a bad actor. The neocons are dying out. Long live the neocons, I guess. But no, the neocons are dying out, so people can see who's really a friend and who's really an enemy. Um, I made a thread, where somebody brought up sort of the Sistine Chapel and Isaac. Um, hold on a second, let me pull it up here. Uh, Isaac Young brought up like the Sistine Chapel, and my response is sort of like, really the plebs just treated it like a story book to look at while the priest was doing the boring bits. The really it's there's sort of like an elite idea that we're unconsciously pursuing. We are an organized minority, a cabal of sorts, a conspiracy, in fact. And this is my theory. Um,
I think most, I think most of us are ordinary people. Like if I were in a chapel, yeah, I would be looking at the pretty pictures.
yes.
Like, when I see
Oh,
a
I do
story, I want
too.
to read a good story.
Yes.
And I think that's what a lot of people are like. I've actually listened to a podcast. There was a man in England, Will Noland, and he was fired by making some very tame YouTube video about the patriarchy is best. So he's actually tradcath, and I've seen a bit of his stuff from here on out, and he's like encouraging his audience not to try and be deep and philosophical, but to allow their priest to interpret the Bible for them. And I just think, in this day and age, we're encouraged to deconstruct everything, to provide, to
Yes.
force science. into everything, and like, no, I think most of us people have our biological instincts to appreciate good quality, and
Yes.
that's how we base things on. So I kind of, yeah, with the Corncrake, what I want is good stories that appeal to all of us, you know, on a human level. And philosophy and deconstruction and all that is just, I hope the sooner that dies out the better, let's be honest. I hope in my lifetime I will see the end of that,
I
because
think
it's
we
just,
will, at least to
it's
a
too
point.
much. It's ridiculous. Like, I wish to believe that dragons are real. I don't like living in this day and age where, oh no, you can't believe that because scientifically speaking, a thing of that size can't fly.
Can't fly. And it can't fly. And it's like, what about this gigantic man-eating sized pterodactyl? Oh yeah, that could
Oh,
fly
they
just
can
fine.
fly,
It can
yeah.
fly,
Even though they've got
yeah.
huge beaks on them that are bigger than the rest of their body, at least looks like
Yeah, they
that.
can
I mean, have you
fly.
seen have you seen the looks of these things? Their beaks are so damn huge.
Yes,
And they've got
yes.
tiny little feet the size of a 5-year-old.
Yes. Preaching to the choir, sister. Preaching to the choir.
I mean, pterodactyls are amongst my favorite dinosaurs, I'm not going to lie.
A fantastic choice.
Well,
Uh,
they're just so evil, and I like it.
they do look evil. They look, yes. Uh, well, when you want to do the all pulp, all horror thing, we'll just call it the pterodactyl. Um,
That would be excellent, except I'd be worried if people would be able to pronounce it.
the plebs. You ignore the plebs. You must ignore the plebs. No.
Quetzalcoatlus is like the biggest,
Quetzalcoatl.
or however you say it.
Yes.
But I'm sure David Attenborough was saying Quetzalcoatlus.
Yes, now we see the Quetzalcoatl as it carries away my cameraman. Thanks to the wonders of modern technology, our wireless voice can
Will
still
continue
connect.
to film his death, and science will deconstruct this film slide by slide to understand the exact point at which life leaves the human body.
Let's give a good warm hand to Terry, even though he can't appreciate it on account of being torn apart
Uh,
by baby pterodactyls.
Unfortunately, he only worked for us for less than a year, so his family will get no compensation.
We will name a park bench after him,
Oh yeah, park bench. That will rot in 50 years and be crumbling.
yes, and we've already removed it because of too many homeless people sleeping on it. Poor Terry. He's not getting his college credit at this point. Uh,
remember, remember poor Terry.
eaten by pterodactyls. Well, that's no excuse for him to be
Hey,
late
it
for his.
matches his name. This was his destiny.
It was. See that you believe in nominative determinism. You're only one step away from Dickensian looks maxing.
Well, I'm fascinated by physiognomy. I'm not going to lie, but it's just it's just something that has you have to get your head around after like being told most of your adult life equality, equity, and inclusion, or whatever the heck their three phrases are.
Yes. Well, it is actually kind of difficult to get your mind around it. I won't lie, because it's a complete sort of mind shift on sort of what we have available, like to use as tools. Like if you want to look at things like do a study of what actors look smart. And are treated as smart characters. They wouldn't put a total Neanderthal into, a scientist position, even though a good friend of mine, practically my best friend, really is my best friend at this point, um, is absolutely redneck hillbilly looking, drives around in a motorcycle, and is also One of the reasons why mirrors in space for space satellites don't overheat and melt. Which
Why
you
would a mirror overheat and melt?
so even though it reflects heat, it still
Are there
retains some of it.
vampires in space?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Is
I
this why the mirrors are melting?
I believe that it is not necessarily the purity of the sun that melts a vampire, but instead the sun as it is treated
Oh,
from
it's the
Earth.
spirit of the sun.
Yes, yes. Okay, okay, okay. We have a sun spiritist here. No, you're right. Uh, but um, yes, yes. Uh, no, it's just things get really hot in space when it's facing the sun. You'd die of overheating, but not before you die of asphyxiation. But you would die of overheating there. Depending if the sun's facing you or not. And he's worked on that sort of thing.
Wait. So, why are we worried about mirrors melting? I think we should be worried about people melting first.
Well, we're insulated, but
Oh, you mean in like the fat, puffy suits they
yes.
wear?
So it's
And
it's
what are having mirrors? I mean, is this like they need to reapply
so
their lipstick, or what do they have mirrors for?
really I'm putting some things together. He's told me he's worked in cryogenics, and he's told me he's worked on some satellite stuff in the
I
past.
mean, that's kind of
But
extreme.
mm,
I don't
uh,
believe in cryogenics. I'm just going to say that I'm going to open all those cryogenic chambers and look at the frozen corpses and poke at them and mock.
oh no. So I don't know if you've heard this, but the big cryogenic places have all gone under, and the big famous one, they cracked it open and discovered that all of their people that had survived up until this point were actually just soup.
So
The
what? Like I thought they were frozen. Why did they turn to soup?
Because of power failures, they ran
But I
out
thought
of
they would have
money.
backup. They would have backup generator, or they're hiding their flaws.
Maybe, but point is that they were a viscous slurry by the end of it.
Well, I think they get what they deserve then, being so
Yes,
arrogant as to thinking they're going to come back.
it's true.
I'm sorry, I have no sympathy. I'm being very unsympathetic right now, but like, come on.
No, they were sought to avoid their own deaths and achieve immortality in the
And they turned into
cringiest
soup.
ways. Yes, they, do you
I would
dare?
rather be have a normal funeral surrounded by family. Wouldn't that be so much more wholesome than someone sucking you out of a cylinder with a hose because you turned into soup? What do they do with these soup people? I mean, these people paid millions to be like that, or
Yeah.
thousands. What do they
Well,
do with them?
I keep wanting to say drink it, but I know that they didn't do that probably. Um, I have no idea what they did. I really hope they didn't just flush it out to the sewers.
It would be hilarious.
In this comparison, to contrast to people of the same time frame, in a nearby cemetery, and St. Louis is full of cemeteries, but in a nearby cemetery, there used to be the habit of Episcopalians to rent out or buy out or whatever an entire plot of land for the whole church. And their
Yeah.
goal in this was to be rise into the clouds at the rapture together as one church. And I
Well,
think
that
that's
sounds
pretty
wholesome.
amazing. Yes. And I compare and contrast it because these were people of the same time, you see. So at the same time, people were cryogenically freezing themselves. They were also, other people more holy minded were, uh, burying themselves together after death to rise to the clouds together. Hmm. Makes it real easy to track family lines too, because same church, all the
Hmm.
families there.
Yeah. So much more wholesome than being soup.
Yes, yes, they are one with the earth now. I think the freshest of them was 20 years ago, if I recall correctly. I'm sure one or two are still alive in ancient old folks' homes and whatnot, but It's a different mindset. I think it's one. If I were to say, how these two groups celebrated Christmas, I would say that the cryogenic freezers were all incredibly materialistic and believed you could buy love, even as they attempted to buy their immortality. Whereas the Episcopalians likely had true warmth in their families. Uh, um, you know, by comparison. Surely, they were good Germans, mostly. Germans and Anglo stock. Uh, but uh, those groups do know how to do Christmas right, I think.
Okay, this is the thing I don't get about cryogenics. Okay,
Okay.
why is their life attached to their body? Because some people preserve the whole body, some people preserve the brain. There's no logic. They're preserving some kind of human tissue. Is the spirit not separate?
It is, but they did not believe it so.
So
So
they think their 80-year-old corpse is going to be restarted with life.
I would have to think so. Like the spirit of the age was entirely materialistic. The 50s through the 70s. While there was a spiritual revival in the 1950s through the 70s, this revival was actually turned to evil through relaxation of, like, they started letting people in, essentially, and one of the groups that came in were a bunch of Indian yogis and spiritual teachers, and they started cults wherever they went. David Koresh, not David Koresh, excuse me, Manson is a very famous one. The People's Temple, the drinking the Kool Aid people. For some reason, I'm blanking out on the cultist leader's name. Jim Jones was also one of them. I think he was like two generations from an Indian yogi. Famously, the Beatles went and sat on the mountain with some Swami or other. Um, there was a spiritual revival in the 1950s or 70s, but it turned into cult worship very quickly. And so while you had the birth of the megachurch in America, maybe this is more of an American phenomenon than an English one, I should say. Um, while you had the birth of um, you had like rock music coming up as well. You had Woodstock. You had cults. Ekankar recently opened up an office near my place where I get cheap sushi on Thursdays. Um, there's, like these cults even lasted today. Ekankar is a cult. Excuse me, I should have said that. For those who don't know, it's got quite a few members. Probably less than what they say, but more than what you think. Um, and it was a spirit of the age that went through, and these people were sort of whammied by it. So even though spiritual things were happening, in the end, the lesson that they took from it is that they are just flesh, and that even if their body dies, their spirit can be revived from their body even after death, because it's the sparking of the brain that matters, and not necessarily a soul as separate from the physical flesh.
I've just googled it. Apparently, some of these bodies are being they're thawed out and were scraped off the bottom of their cryogenic chambers. This is unbelievably gross. But this brings out like the whole argument of when life begins, because babies develop slowly over a period of months. At
That's
what
right.
stage does their brain start? Well, the same with death. It's like
What is death?
it's not logical that you can make people come alive again.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. And there's, even if um, and even if you do, like, perfectly preserve your body, frankly, um, the who knows that you'll be back to inhabit it. I always think that that's like Frankenstein was inhabited by a demon. I'd say, if you were to question me.
What about the bride? The other Frankenstein. I mean, oh, sorry, the other monster Frankenstein tried to make. Like, he didn't finish making her, did he?
No, he didn't. He destroyed her in a fit of pique to defy the monster. Though, quite frankly, it was even though it caused him his final set of disasters, he made the right call. Even if he made her, if they happened to produce terrible, terrible offspring, it would be like the Nephilim of old, which caused the flood.
Yeah, but did he bother putting reproductive organs in, or was he just trying to get them
He
living?
was a professional shield maiden. He was a professional.
He created a monster so ugly that everyone screamed and cried out in
Yes.
horror when they saw it.
Yes.
Clearly, he was not a professional.
He was a professional. All right, let me rephrase. The monster Frankenstein, the monster of Frankenstein, implies that he is full and working. If you get me, I would assume uh, Doctor Frankenstein, who had to put them together, would understand the implication, because the way he acts is that he destroys her for fear of what she would bring forth. That they would bring forth a race of monsters.
No, that would no. Yeah, he should have. Yep, killed. We don't want that.
Well, he never should. You never should have tried to play God in the first place. Yes, yes. But we're
Yeah.
past that. We're past that now. We're like a Hollywood producer after a flop. Oh, baby, don't worry about that. We're past that. We're past that. Insurance.
Do you want to know some more fun facts about cryogenics?
Yes.
So basically, you can freeze them okay, but the problem is when you start to thaw them, they start to break up. So the spinal cord can crack. You can get huge cracks in the heart and the skin and everything. And yeah, the spinal cord can just be severed.
Ooh.
So, even if you don't turn them into a human popsicle, they may not come back looking very nice.
Well, it's once again the theme of the outside matching the inside. Rears its ugly and sometimes beautiful, if it's beautiful, head.
And apparently your relatives could pull you out and bury you when they're tired of paying for
you. That's great. I heard
you can't have our grandmother's head in your freezer. That's absurd. Give it. We want her buried.
Yes. I heard one of the companies just straight up went under, and it was a bad day for the janitor. We'll say.
This is hilarious. So a woman in California,
yes,
took her father away and put him in her ice shed behind her house. The body was discovered when she was evicted. So the town has a frozen dead guy day to celebrate every year.
That's amazing. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But yes, so far, if your relatives don't pull you out and you don't turn into soup to be scraped out of your cryogenics chamber, yes, it's most likely you're going to crack up when you thaw.
Yes.
Sorry, I feel I brought the mood down.
No, I am my tastes run grim. So this is actually very enjoyable to me. For our dear audience, you know what I'm like. You've seen enough of these episodes. You should understand.
I think I'm more horrified that humans would be so desperate to live that they would turn into soup, that they would spend $30,000, which would be better served in an inheritance to their children or grandchildren. They'd rather risk turning into soup.
But if they die, they face the judgment. They might verbally. It's like it's like I've brought this up quite a few times in different shows and on Twitter and stuff like that. But like it's the difference between what they say and what they do. They scream, they shout, "There's no God," and then they do everything in their power to not die for. And it's like, oh no, buddy.
But dying is a part of life.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Uh, I find it. I don't know. I don't know how I should say it, but like it's the end of the things is not necessarily the tragedy. It's how well the play acting of the characters performed. Um, I remember Caesar Augustus' famous last words, whatever his last words were, but this is what was recorded. Have I performed my part well? If so, applaud when I exit. Um, that's the way I take it. Because after all, now that I am a Christian man, and I've been so for many years, but as I am a Christian man, I should say, my concern is not necessarily some sort of worldly, like the drunk girl I threw out, oh, you look poor, it's like you're poor, earn some money, and then it's like, yeah, but that's not what I'm going for, really. It's I could, throw everything away, try businesses until I succeed,
It seems
and
seems like the bitter accusation of a person, like
yes,
just yelling out the final insult, the
it,
best thing they can conjure up.
yes, I agree. But in reality, what every Christian should work for, however it appears to them in their lives, whether business or art or simply living that good life, is whether God will tell you, hey, well done, good and faithful servant. I'm happy with you. You've done a good job. These people who are start turning the cryogenics, which by the way are different than the cryogenics my friend worked on. It's like scientific, keeping things cool, not necessarily preserving dead people forever. Uh, just wanted to make that clear in case you ever think of my friend that way. But um, uh, uh, what was I saying? Right. But these people, if they died and get to, and are at the pearly gates, let's even say, one or two of them are saved, you know, and they just chose bad choices, which you can do as a Christian. Your free will doesn't disappear. God's not going to tell them, oh yeah, good job on that cryogenics thing. I'm glad you wanted to delay meeting me as long as possible. He's going to say, no, what are you doing? Why couldn't you trust in me? Like you said, you did.
I think though people with cryogenics, I mean, if you go to heaven, God is like going to be like, what the fuck? And if you go to hell, Satan's just going to snigger because I mean, there's no way on earth you can point to cryogenics, and it's just not respectable in
It
any
isn't.
way, shape, or form.
That is the most English thing you could say about cryogenics. It's not respectable.
But it's true.
It is true. And welcome, Anthony Marquetta. Hey, hey, hey. Uh, but yes, absolutely true. Uh, but no, it's the spirit of the thing. Much like Christmas. Christmas isn't the things; it's the spirit of the things.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I've got some nice little gifts for the family. I'm getting my dad a nice thick walking stick to help him in his old age and in his as his knees aren't that great in the snow. I've got a nice little necklace I bought from a Macintosh museum, and some Celtic designed earrings for my sister. The necklace is for my mother. They themselves have gotten some things for me they're very excited about. Um, and it's why am I doing this? Am I doing it? Oh, it's Christmas, so I gotta buy them gifts. It's like, no, I think she'll like this, and I know Mom like loves a good necklace, and this will be a very good and practical gift from my father, who is not very fanciful at all. Um, it's it's a spirit to the things that matter.
Mhm.
If you go to church and you go, oh Christ, oh to be saved, it doesn't really do much. But to go with singing and gladness that you no longer have to face hell is absolutely the right way to go to church. Hmm.
Yeah, well, it has been a while since we started recording. I did not
Yes,
expect for us to talk so long, nor to talk about creepy things like cryogenics.
I am entirely unbothered. I am moisturized in my lane. You know,
Writhing.
writhing, writhing.
No, well, that's you trying to get away from being like cryogenically preserved.
Yes. No, you can't make me a popsicle,
Yeah,
sir.
exactly.
Millions must freeze. Uh,
No.
yes. But yeah, no, we've talked quite a bit. Do you have any final words for us?
My final words are for everyone to check out the Corncrake, corncrakemag.com. There's a new page on there, reviews. There's a few reviews up. I'm doing book reviews and art reviews as well. So if you want me to review something, let me know. Reach out to me. But yes, check out the website, and the magazine comes out the first Monday of every month. Yes, and obviously I'm interested in authors. I want people who want to be published. If you're a new writer, send in your submissions. But if you publish things on, let's say, Substack or whatever, I'm happy to republish things. So it's an opportunity for you to reach out to a new and different audience as well. So yeah, check out the Corncrake.
Absolutely. I heartily endorse the Corncrake. Uh, it's difficult to keep up with everything going on today. I know for myself because I'm not just a consumer. No piggy at the trough for me, but also a producer in that I get butchered regularly and return fresh, like Odin with new wisdom. Uh, uh, but Corncrake is absolutely something people should keep track of, especially those with a deep interest in the finer things in life and the English things in life. It is a flavor all its own, much like a well-made roast. My dear friend and co-host Anthony Marquetta says uh, the cryogenics discussion is probably not even in the top 10% of creepiest things we've talked about on the show. And then I say quiet, and he says, "You'll never silence me." And it's true, it's true. Uh, don't let them silence you, but rather wish everyone you find a Merry Christmas. Uh, Certainly, you might find some good people of good countenance and friendly disposition to help you, and you'll also see who are the real people. Who are ugly and hateful and might be your foes inside, because of course Nicholas Nickleby was a perfect reality, and Nicholas Nickleby would read the Corncrake. Thank you and good night. My mother tends to. We're done.